Well, hi, good afternoon, and thanks for joining us again today for a daily update, the final Facebook Live that we'll be doing in the foreseeable future at the moment. I'm joined again today by Scott McLaughlin, who's the Chief Executive for the Western New South Wales Local Health District, and also joined by the new Western Region Commander for the New South Wales Police Force, Assistant Commissioner Brett Greentree, who'll look at how things are going with policing. And look, today, I guess, shows the way things can change fairly quickly in a regional area like ours. I'll come to the numbers in just a tick, but today's also a time just to reflect, and Scott will talk more about this, reflect on where we're coming from and where we're heading towards. What we're heading towards is life being a bit more normal. But with that comes a bit more responsibility on each and every one of us, to be perfectly honest, around maintaining the way we conduct ourselves in public areas. Those public areas include facilities like pubs and clubs and cafes and restaurants, which for areas that are coming out of stay-at-home orders will be providing an opportunity to socialise again. With that opportunity also comes responsibility. And I think we really need to think about that individually, as a family group and as a community, that we don't go too far the other way and think this is a time to party without thinking about what that might mean. So the simple things that we've talked about the whole way through will continue to be followed by people when they're in indoor areas. That is wearing a mask. You need to wear a mask other than when you're eating or drinking. Pretending you're eating or drinking isn't a good way of doing that either. You need to actually think about yourself, your family, your community. So doing the right thing at indoor venues and at outdoor venues, washing your hands regularly, keeping a bit of physical distance between people whilst you're able to socialise. You shouldn't be hugging and kissing everyone again. It's just not the time, because we know the virus is still circulating, and we have areas that are out from the stay-at-home orders that border very closely with major centres like Dubbo, which is still in stay-at-home orders. So there is still that risk there, and what we're doing and what the Health District and the Public Health team is doing is always profiling that risk level to make sure we can keep heading in the right direction. So just bear that in mind. Up until 8 o'clock last night, 32 new cases. So that's a reflection on where we can go from single digits to sort of 10, 11, 12, and we're now up to 32 on this Friday. 10 of those cases are at Burke. 9 are at Cowra. Wellington has 8 new cases. Dubbo itself has 2. Mudgee has 2. And Narromine has 1 new case. Now, the Narromine case has not been infectious in the community and is considered a very low risk. So that will not, at this stage, impact on Narromine coming out from stay-at-home orders at midnight tonight. There's been a bit of concern around what that might mean. That has been clarified. Narromine is still due to come out of stay-at-home orders at 12:01 Saturday morning, just after midnight tonight. So that's something still for Narromine to look forward to, but it is just a reminder that cases can and will continue to pop up, whatever part of the region you're living in. So the Health District total now, 1,131 over the period. Dubbo local government area up to 791 cumulative cases. The Far West today, again, more cases at Broken Hill, 9 there, and Wilcannia has 2 new cases. Now, from that 32 new cases, 9 have been infectious in the community, 5 for at least 2 days. And some of those places where infectious in the community include Dubbo, Wellington, and also Burke and Cowra. So of concern in those communities. 8 have been isolating and 15 are still being investigated. 182 people now part of our COVID in the Care community program, and that's been a great program. 26 extra people discharged in the last 24 hours, so no longer needing care, no longer infectious, and that total is now almost 900 that have come through that program. Testing bumped up a little bit again yesterday, just over 2,800 across the region. A reminder about surveillance testing. Scott will talk about this more as well, but surveillance testing is now available everywhere across the entire Western New South Wales Local Health District. What that means is if you're not feeling symptomatic, if you haven't got any symptoms, you're not a close contact, you haven't been living with somebody that is a contact or a positive case, you can pop to your nearest testing facility and keep doing what you're doing. Go in your lunch hour, go at Smoko, duck in there, get a test, keep working. It just means you're helping to keep us aware of where things are happening, and also you're helping keep yourself slightly ahead of the game. You still need to act in a responsible way. So testing doesn't mean you can test and then go and do the wrong thing. You still need to wear a mask. You still need to work in a way that you've been working, which is remaining distanced from other people. But it means we can all keep slightly ahead of the game. Vaccination, second dose clinics still happening across the region. So Dunedoo continuing today and also tomorrow. Mudgee, it's the final day at St Matthew's School. I've still had a few questions around people that haven't received a text message. If you were at one of the ADF clinics, wherever they are coming, if you don't receive a text message and you know the clinic is in town for second doses, just turn up there. Turn up there roughly at the same time as you got your first dose, that 3 weeks ago. Don't turn up the day before, turn up on the corresponding day. It needs to be that 3-week period, so at least 21 days, and then just make sure you do turn up. We do want you to get your second dose. Cowra's underway today as well, so that's a really important one given the cases and the concern around Cowra at the moment. So underway at the showground there today and tomorrow. Rylstone over the weekend too. You can follow the link that's on this very Facebook post to all of the information about where the clinics are heading to across the weekend and into next week and when they're going to be at your town. So Orange and Cobar, for example, next week. Make sure you're checking and getting yourself organised when you receive that text message to get along and get your second dose. Still plenty of opportunities to book a vaccination as well through all sorts of places, like your GP clinics. Don't worry if you're not a client, try your GPs and see where you can get in. Same with pharmacies that are also taking bookings now for Moderna, which will be underway from next week, which is fantastic news. Check with everyone you possibly can. What we know is the second dose is where we need to be focusing. There will also be first dose opportunities again with the ADF clinic in certain areas, and again there's first dose opportunities with your pharmacists and your GP clinics as well. A lot of local government areas that have come out of stay-at-home orders, obviously, we've mentioned that in the past few days. So Gill and Brewarrina came out the other day, Orange came out as of midnight last night, and Narromine due to come out as of midnight tonight. But you do just need to think about how that affects what you do and where you travel. One of the most common questions I've had is actually from hairdressers. There are lots of hairdressers in areas where you'll be coming out of stay-at-home areas, out of stay-at-home orders, and people that maybe normally come to you that are still in stay-at-home order areas. You won't be able to cut their hair. It's as simple as that. If you're still in a stay-at-home order area, so for example Dubbo, you can't travel to Narromine and get a haircut. You can't travel to Narromine really unless it's for essential things. So the simple message is if you are either working or living in an area that is still under lockdown, you need to continue to act that way wherever you are. Even if it's going somewhere different for work, you are still under stay-at-home orders. Now, as I mentioned, today is the final time we'll do this current phase of Facebook Lives. It's something we started back on August the 11th to try and make sure that you had a single focus each and every day to get all the information that we think you needed to get from health, from police, from council and from myself and other agencies. We think we've got past the emergency phase of things. We're very much in a stabilisation phase, and whilst the work continues to go on very much each and every day in the background, we will continue to keep you updated. I will still be doing an update every single day at midday to make sure you're aware of all the information. But as far as the Facebook Live things, I think we've probably done the run there. But look, there are lots of people to thank. I'm not going to mention each and every person here today because it'll take me an hour, but I just sort of name a few, and I want to start off with the entire team at the Western New South Wales Local Health District, starting with one of the blokes behind me today, Scott, who has been under immense pressure. It's been a very difficult time for everyone. He has borne the brunt of a lot of that pressure. So I want to say to Scott, thank you. You've done an incredible job, as has your team. Like everything, there's a team behind everyone who gets to represent the community, and he's certainly got a great team. So the communications team, Kath and Matt, who are both on the teams meeting here today. I particularly want to thank Matt, who's been really available to me, provided me a lot of information and been there for a lot of time, mate. So thank you for that. To New South Wales Police, from Jeff McKechnie down, and I farewell Jeff officially. I think it might have been Tuesday this week was his last one. And again, through the media team and through local commanders like Danny and Brett Greentree, who is the new Western Region Commander, who's been part of it, particularly over weekends with me as well. Again, the effort has been incredible from the New South Wales Police and the ADF, who have been working so closely with our New South Wales Police. And the ADF clinics have been just an absolute game changer for this region. So thank you to Police, thank you to the ADF. To Dubbo Regional Council, it's just been fantastic collaboration since day one, and that is something I'm extremely grateful for, and I'm sure everyone who's been involved is extremely grateful for. And that starts at the top. So I want to thank the Mayor, Stephen Lawrence, who I spoke to personally this morning and thanked. He, along with the CEO, Murray Wood, have been unwavering in their support. Murray's been a rock through the entire process, and I'm happy to say that without people like him, this would have been extremely difficult, and we certainly would not be where we are today without him. The support continues through all of the staff, all of the comm staff, the media staff, and one bloke who's sort of standing directly over that way from me is Andrew Parsons. He's been part of every media conference we've done. He's provided broadcast quality pictures to media organisations around Australia and in sometimes across the world. So Andrew, thank you, mate. You've done a fantastic job, and that will certainly not be forgotten. To all the special guests we've had, and we've had a lot of them, from GPs to AMBOs to people running the community care program stuff. We've had a lot of people that have come along to one of the Facebook Lives and told you what they know, and a lot of that's been around their jobs and what they're seeing at the ED or as an ambulance person. But also the generous people who came and did social media videos for us to share via council. We had a lot of people who gave up time and wanted to spread that message about the importance of vaccination. It all made a difference. So thank you very much for what you did for us. And look, finally, I want to thank my staff. And there's really only a couple of them that have been part of this the entire way through. So it's me and two staff. Jen, who is with me today for this final one, but she was with me for the first one as well and was there for 38 days straight without a break. Thank you, Jen, for everything you have done. To Jane, who's been working from home every single day during this period, answering the thousands of email questions, the messengers, the Facebooks. We all pitch in on that. It's been a massive effort, but I want to thank you, Jane, as well. And it's funny the perception that people have had around how this Facebook live stream is actually put together. So just a little bit of insight before we wrap things up today. People think that I don't know how or why they think this, but people tend to think that I have a team of writers that put all this information together for me and just give it to me and I stand up here and say it. I write all of this myself. It's information I get from Scott and his team, from Matt and from Kath and from everyone in the media and comms team. They give me the information, I write it, so I know exactly what I'm talking about. We provide the Facebook live stream. I'm talking to you through a phone. It's my phone. It's as simple as that. We use a couple of my small microphones, and that's the way it's been since day one. There's no huge audio-visual team that comes and does this. It's me and one other staff member every single day. So I do want to thank the staff members that have been a part of that. So to Jen and Jane and now Beck, who's part of the team, thanks for everything you've done. And the importance of that is that you've been part of helping inform the entire community during this period, and we will continue to do that. So thank you for the work you will continue to do as well. But I also do want to acknowledge you who are watching this today. It's been really important that you have taken the time to be part of this for the past 45 days in a row. You've helped spread the message. You've helped be the voice of the community in a sensible way, and I hope you will continue to do that, because as I've said, I will continue to provide the update, just in a slightly different way, and when we need to do something to video, we will. But in the meantime, all of the information will continue to be there each and every day. So thank you for doing your part and being a part of the voice of the community. Thanks very much. I'll leave it there and hand over to Scott now for his update.
Thanks, Dougal. Afternoon, everybody. Thanks, Dougal, for those words, and also for your leadership and ability to communicate and help us through what I know has been a really difficult time. Likewise to Jeff McKechnie, who's probably sitting back in an armchair or his tractor somewhere now, and hopefully enjoying a new start to the next stage of life. Jeff, you've been an amazing rock and a leader in this region, so mate, all the best. And it's great to have Brett here as a part of the team for the future. So today's, again, another sobering reminder of how quickly things can change. with over 30 cases being identified in just 24 hours, a couple of locations of real concern across the district, and some of those connected to the releasing of stay-at-home orders where people have moved around really freely and started to go back to, might have been 18, 24 months ago, of the way that things might have been. Now, it's a real warning for us that any day of the week, any of our communities can see an outbreak that can happen very quickly and grow to a scale of what we saw here in Dubbo around 7 weeks ago, which saw a doubling of numbers every 3 days, which quickly took us to around 100 cases with 5 locations across the whole of the region, and kicked off an event that we're still dealing with the impacts of. Now, that can happen any day of the week in any of our communities, and one of the real concerns I share at the moment with a lot of health staff is the opportunity that people have to go out and, has been coined, celebrate, and start a celebration of getting out of lockdown. The lockdowns aren't a punishment, that they've been an opportunity to help protect everybody. We've lost too many lives through this. We know that with the ability for people to move around more freely comes real risk that COVID on any day of the week can be circulating around any of our communities. If you're going out this weekend in Orange, in other locations, in Narromine, in Gilgandra, to the pub, to a club, to a restaurant, or other places, we know the phones have been ringing off the hook in those places. Those indoor venues are no less risky than going to a supermarket, to a newsagent, to other places. If you think it's a time to sit around for hours on end without a mask on and just flaunt some of the things that have been so effective in keeping us safe, then we've all got a real risk in coming days and weeks. Now, I say that with real caution. We have done a great job getting to now, and I don't want to see us end up back in a really serious situation within days and weeks. So with that, the 32 cases that have been identified up to 8 p.m. yesterday has got some real concern. Around 10 cases in the Dubbo LGA, 8 of those in Wellington, and an evolving situation in Wellington that we'll see further cases in coming days. 10 cases in Burke across a couple of clusters. We'll see further growth in days in Burke. In Cowra, again, a region that was released from lockdown around a week ago, we saw a lot of movement across the community, spread within schools, on school buses, in other venues. That's now taken it to 9 cases in the last 24 hours. Now, a lot of this is children and their carers or parents. We've seen spread in family groups and between kids. And so, again, it's a real time to be cautious around people being in contact with others and how we do that safely. Mudgee, 2 cases, and Narromine, 1 case, as Dougal mentioned. The source for that case isn't known yet, but we do believe the case wasn't infectious in the community. 15 cases have been linked out of the 32. Our teams are still working literally 24/7 to try and make sure that we can track down those links. 8 household links, 7 links to a known cluster or other cases. We've still got 17 under investigation. Out of the 32, 9 were definitely infectious in the community, and that number will grow in coming days. And so please, everyone, again, it's a real warning that on any day of the week in any of our communities, this can really get away from us again. With that, there has been a risk in Coonabarabran with a person that travelled from Broken Hill to Coonabarabran and was known to be infectious in the community. Now, that's a person that has got some challenging conversations in front of them. They've been taken to the health accommodation in Dubbo and being supported in their isolation and making sure that they stay in that place. Across the 3 aged care facilities, 2 in Dubbo and 1 in Mudgee, no further cases in those, and so an improving situation that's very pleasing to see. Some more venues of concern across the whole of the region, across Dubbo, Orange, Mudgee, Cowra and Wellington. Please, if you're in those communities, please look at the New South Wales Health website or our Facebook posts. The regular updates are going up as quickly as we can there. I know there was some delays in getting those up yesterday. I apologise for those. We'll continue to make that as quickly as we can. A further sewerage test in Lightning Ridge where we don't have a known case. So can I ask please the community of Lightning Ridge and surrounding communities, whether you're on a mining camp or living outside of Lightning Ridge, coming into town regularly, if you've got any signs and symptoms, please don't leave the house without coming and getting tested. If you don't have symptoms, please come and get tested. You don't need to isolate unless you've been in a household with someone with symptoms. And so there's a great opportunity. We've got to find, I think over the last 2 weeks, we've seen 4 different sewage tests identified in Lightning Ridge with positive COVID fragments. Testing, around 2,800 tests yesterday, still around half the number that we'd like to see across the district, particularly in the southern part of the region, particularly around Bathurst, Orange and some of the surrounding communities, please. The opportunity's there, come and get tested. You don't have to isolate if you haven't got symptoms or have been in a household with someone that has. As Dougal said, at lunchtime between work, over the weekend if you've got 5-10 minutes free, the turnaround time is becoming very quick. The vast majority are coming back under 24 hours and the waiting times are very minimal to get into testing at the moment. Mobile at home testing, again, still available across Dubbo, Orange, Bathurst and Cowra. At Orange, if you call 63939013 through the Orange Aboriginal Medical Service and local Aboriginal Lands Council are supporting that in-home testing. And in Bathurst, Dubbo and Cowra, call through the 1300 066 055 number if you can't leave your house and you really do need someone to come and help you to get tested. Across all of our 38 hospitals, we've got 13 patients in hospital at the moment. Again, a decreasing number of patients in hospital. 6 in intensive care, however, that's an increase from yesterday, with 3 patients still being ventilated. Across those 13, 5 in Dubbo, 4 in Bathurst, 2 in Narromine, 1 in Orange and 1 in Burke. Now what you'll see there is, I'd expect in coming days, a growing number. With the growing case numbers that we're seeing, we know that there's some real risk with patients, people needing to be hospitalised, particularly when they're not vaccinated. We're still seeing a large number of our cases coming in that aren't fully vaccinated or single dose vaccinated, and so please can I encourage everyone, we know you'll get really crook if you don't get vaccinated. Now's the time, don't hesitate. The opportunities for vaccination are a lot across the whole of our region now. We've got the ADF continuing to see pop-up clinics in a lot of communities across the region, returning to Orange and Bathurst next week. The Cowra clinic today and tomorrow. There is opportunities for people to come in. If you haven't had a first dose, then please come into that clinic today. For second doses, people should have been notified via text message. If you haven't been notified and you're concerned about that, please message us through our Facebook page. You'll be able to get a response and some information around what's happening and the plans for your second dose vaccination. As Dougal said, if you don't have a notification to come back roughly on the day that you received your first dose vaccination. The pharmacies across the region are really starting to roll out Moderna. It's a very safe and effective vaccination through a lot of pharmacies in the region. Over the next week we'll see a lot more open up, and so please look for your local pharmacy being able to provide Moderna as a vaccination if you're aged between 12 and 59. So please don't hesitate, the time to get vaccinated, particularly for the 12 to 40-year-old group that we know have a lower rate of both single and second dose vaccinations across the region. That's a group that we really want to fast track in the next couple of weeks to get vaccinated. Again, we know that the vaccinations take around 2 weeks to have effect, to really give you the protection that you need to stop both picking up COVID as frequently, spreading COVID to others, but more importantly, getting really crook. And so please, the time is today to go and get vaccinated, book in for vaccination as quickly as you can, and ring up your local pharmacy and look for those locally. Back to a couple of the other pieces. We've got now 9 health workers off in isolation. Again, that number's low and that's a pleasing number for us. We've got 182 patients in our Care in the Community program. Now that's a drop from a couple of days ago, again with further patients being discharged, but with a significant increase in new cases today. We know that that'll increase, and in coming weeks and months we know that there'll be some real challenges for some of those patients to stay in the home and being supported and looked after, and may need hospitalisation. So again, a real caution. The stay-at-home orders being lifted aren't the opportunity to go out and celebrate. We know that the stay-at-home orders really have been difficult and tough for a lot of people. My heart goes out to everyone that has been impacted by that may have struggled with your mental health, may have struggled not being able to see your family, friends and everyone else. I know it's been tough, but it'll be equally as tough if we see COVID spreading across our region at a faster rate than what we saw in Dubbo around 7 weeks ago. It can absolutely happen. We've still got low rates of vaccination where we don't have the level of protection that we need to stop, slow and protect people that get infected by COVID-19. So please, everyone, take care. It is a real time to be sensible and just be cautious about the risk that you pose to others or others pose to you in potentially spreading COVID around our region. So with that, I'll hand over to the newly anointed Brett Greentree. Thanks, Brett.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Scott. And again, just acknowledge my predecessor, Mr McKechnie, who's retired, no doubt sitting back watching this now in his retirement. I just want to acknowledge also Dougal, local member, for his leadership throughout and continuing, helping us to spread the message, I think, via Facebook Live. It's been great. It's allowed us another forum for us to really talk about the issues from a policing perspective, emergency management perspective, and get our message out as well. I'll start off with the policing operation. Only about 23 infringements across the region in the last 24 hours. That is really good. So that tells me, compliance is pretty good. I'm not going to say it's fantastic. What I am worried about is, the next coming weeks in terms of some of the things that Scott alluded to with regards to areas within our region that are moving out of the stay-at-home orders. It is very, very important that we continue to comply with that. I'm not just saying that from a police perspective, I'm saying it from a community member's perspective. We have seen people die tragically as a result of this virus. We need to stop the movement, and hence the public health orders are there. We know they're tough. We all feel it, we all suffer, but we have to comply with them to stop the spread of this virus. We have seen some in the last 24 hours. Scott mentioned it was very sobering to see the spike. We are not out of this. We still have a long way to go before this finishes. I know we've spoken about light at the end of the tunnel, for example, and there is, with some restrictions easing coming up, but we need to be vigilant. We cannot be complacent. Another concern of mine is those who are coming out of the stay-at-home orders, going to pubs, etc. It worries me with regards to masks. Can I please ask you, if you have a drink in your mouth or you're eating, you won't have your mask on. I get that. But as soon as you're finished doing that, please do not sit around without your mask on and pretend you're dining. What I have asked is our licensing police to step up the visibility within our licensed premises in those that are out of the stay-at-home orders. We are doing that not to ruin your fun, but to allow fun further on down the track. That's what we want to do. So now we need to be extra vigilant. And I ask people, if they're out, keep a check on each other, keep a check on your mate. If they're doing the wrong thing, please stop them. Get them to put their mask on. Essential means essential for a reason. And Dougal spoke about our concern about those under the health orders travelling to nearby LGAs who are out of the health orders. You cannot do that. We have been issuing infringements, and we don't want to get to the stage where we're issuing hundreds or arresting people for breaching orders like we were, several weeks ago. We've had in excess of 90-odd vehicles stopped within the Bourke, Walgett, Dubbo region in the last 24 hours. That's checking people, making sure they're doing the right thing. Please help us help you. Again, we're still receiving calls from Crime Stoppers with regards to people doing the wrong thing. We follow those up, every single one of them. So if the police are not watching, you need to understand that the community is watching. They are still watching, and the community as a whole want to get out of this situation that we're in. And that means that we need to do the right thing. From an emergency management perspective, The Region Emergency Management Committee, the Operations Centre, is still in place 24/7. And I should say we're not packing up and going home anytime soon. That will continue supporting our local emergency management committees. As we've said, we're still supporting our friends, the ADF, with their vaccinations, and certainly our close partners, New South Wales Health, with regards to doing what we can to support the vaccination programs, particularly in our vulnerable communities. I don't think we can say enough the importance of ensuring that we get our vaccinations, but of equal importance, which we've touched on, is that second dose vaccination, which the ADF are going around the region now at the moment. So we're supporting our ADF partners as they do that. So from an emergency management perspective, we are here for the long haul. We're going to be supporting health through this, and our local emergency management committees will continue to meet daily, and we will do what we can to focus on those areas that require extra assistance. I should point out that the 3 areas of concern at the moment we've spoken about, Cowra, Burke and particularly Wellington. We will be stepping up our patrols in that area, our high visibility. Cowra in particular, I have sent extra police there today in order to assist the local police and the Emergency Management Committee with compliance. Very, very important. That's it from me. Thank you. Happy for questions.
Thanks, Brett. If anyone has any questions, could you raise your hand now? One from Alex James.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, my question's in relation to essential workers who either live in an LGA that's out of stay-at-home orders, going to work in a place that is currently in lockdown, etc., having to take those stay-at-home orders with them, either into an LGA that's out of lockdown. What is the police doing to manage that specific situation?
Well, we are hoping, firstly, that people are managing that themselves. I was in that before I moved here, to be honest, when I was moving from Sydney to my home out of Sydney, when it wasn't in lockdown. So I would be asking people to manage themselves and manage your mates. Of course, I get it is very difficult to have a police officer outside every door, and I understand people don't want that. So what I am saying is that for those type of issues, police may not know about it, but I can guarantee your neighbour does. I can guarantee some person up the road knows that person is under stay-at-home orders and working in another area. And you know what they're doing? They're ringing Crime Stoppers. So that's a lot of the infringements that we have issued for those type of issues have been as a result of the community ringing Crime Stoppers saying, hey, this neighbour of mine, this person up the road, they're not doing the right thing. And that is generally how we are interacting with those people and issuing infringements.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Riley from the Central Western Daily.
Hey there.
Hey, Riley.
It's just regarding, I know you weren't here yesterday, but it's regarding a traveller from Mudgee to Orange who was COVID positive on the 15th of September. I was just looking to see if there are any more sort of details about that. Do they know they're infectious before they made the trip? Was it a legal trip and has that person fined?
I'm sorry, Riley, I don't know, but we'll take a note of that and I'll get back to you on that one.
Not a worry. Cheers.
No worries.
Thanks, Riley. Sam from the Western Advocate. Sam, you there?
Sorry about that, didn't turn the mic off. There you go. Yeah, I just wanted to ask, in relation to Bathurst Police presence, how has Bathurst Police presence been like in response to COVID over the last couple of weeks? Because obviously Bathurst has had very to and fro-ing cases, so how have local police sort of responded to those figures?
Yes, we held a local emergency management dial-in this morning with the Leocon down there. That's the Emergency Operations Controller, who's the Inspector OIC of Bathurst. Bathurst has been going really well. Certainly in the last 7 days, we've seen compliance, which has been quite good across the board. Infringements, I don't know off the top of my head, but there's certainly been minimal, so that tells me that's a good thing. The local police tell me that, generally speaking, they think it's sort of stable across the community, which is great. They've seen some excellent numbers in the vaccination hubs, and that's been very encouraging as well. So on a whole, I would say the Chifley Police District and the Bathurst area itself, at this point in time, the police tell me they're pretty pleased with the community at the moment, which is great.
Lovely. And I guess with many communities moving away from stay-at-home orders and obviously more to come in the coming weeks if predictions can be believed, how is, I guess, the upward police presence going to vary from community to community? So obviously you've got larger communities like Bathurst, Dubbo and Orange to deal with, but then you've got smaller communities. So is the police presence going to be the same across all communities, or is it going to differ depending on population and, I guess, crime rates and whatnot?
Yeah, it's a good question. Look, it will differ depending on risk, I think, and we've certainly got some challenges. There's no doubt about it. We've got LJs next to each other who are moving out of stay-at-home orders, so that's a challenge in itself. So what we are, though, particularly New South Wales Police, Western Region Police, we are a very mobile and agile police force. So I can move police around. Yes, we've got some distance out here, no doubt about that, but I can move police easily. Today, as I said, I'm sending a team of police to Cowra because that's a risk at the moment with the increase in cases overnight. So that's a concern for us. Crime generally across the board, and I can say this, across the Western region, has been pretty good. There may be a number of factors. We saw last year crime did go down during the stay-at-home, for obvious reasons, I suppose, that people being at home. So those property type offences were lower than what they have been. We haven't seen any significant crime spikes at this time. We've certainly been spending the bulk of our time, there's no doubt about it, within our communities with regards to helping health as the combat agency with the COVID compliance operation. So we have the ability to move around, and I will move police officers around as needed, but it's generally on risk and where the concerns are. So larger communities certainly are a worry because you've got more people, of course. But, our traffic and highway patrol, as I mentioned earlier, nearly 100 cars stopped just to check whether people are complying the last 24 hours across Burke, Walgett and Dubbo, separate to other core policing business. So we're certainly out and about there. I realise we can't be everywhere, but we're doing our best, and we will move with regards to what the risk is in the community.
Thanks very much. That's all from me.
Thanks, Sam. That's everyone for you, Brett. Thank you very much for that. We will bring Dugald forward now. If anyone has any questions for Dugald, could you raise your hands, please? We have one from Alex James from ABC Western Plains.
Thanks, Matt. Considering the spike in cases, or the jump from yesterday to today, and also looking at the fact that New South Wales is still recording over 1,000 cases a day, how is it still feasible and safe to open up public pools next week?
Look, councils have been working individually with New South Wales Health on how that looks. The COVID safe plans that they're having to come up with, you could ask individual councils. Not every council is doing it. Some won't have the capability. Some are still doing building works. But swimming in a pool, you're not actually very close to other people in an environment where the virus can spread. So you're in a chlorinated pool. Only those pools that are capable of doing that will be able to be opened. There'll be some fairly strict guidelines around gatherings outside of being in the body of water itself. And councils have had that responsibility to work through their own COVID safe plans and make sure they're approved by New South Wales Health.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Ryan Young from Dubbo News.
Thanks, Matt. Hi, Dugald. I was just wondering what your response would be to business owners who are worried about, the Premier's comments regarding vaccination and only opening up to vaccinated customers when we hit 70%. The sort of Freedom Day, they're calling it, is a few weeks off when we hit that target, and there's a lot of anxiety. What would you sort of say to reassure businesses about those rules?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. And look, we're fielding questions around that regularly, and I guess it's something that's been, I'd say 2, maybe 3 weeks ago, the Deputy Premier started to outline what the roadmap out actually looks like, and there was the 70% mark and then above 80%. So as we do approach the 70% mark, naturally there will be lots of questions that are being asked. I was at a business online forum this morning with the Treasurer and lots of business chambers, including Dubbo, Orange and around the region, talking about some of those concerns again, and I've done that locally quite a few times now. Look, there is no simple scenario for every single business. That's the reality. Each business is just slightly different. But when businesses are looking at what they want to be doing or are able to do, sometimes there will be some differences there. So businesses will be required to have staff vaccinated, double vaccinated, to be able to open. Now that means if that's not something you're able to do as a business or want to do as a business, maybe you don't reopen at 70%, or you keep trading as you are now without contact with customers. So that's one of the options. The scenario then is between that 70% and above 80%, which I guess is probably, maybe a 3-4 week period that is being discussed, where there will be a few people in limbo. If you are not double vaccinated, you won't be able to go to the hairdresser. If you're not double vaccinated, you won't be able to go to a cafe and sit there. That is what the ruling will be for that 3-4, whatever week period it is, between the 70% double vaxxed and above the 80% double vaxxed. Now, that's around still protecting community members to make sure that the entire group is going in the same direction. As we get above 80% and between 80 and 90 somewhere is where there'll be different levels of restrictions being moved on again. And look, that is still being worked on. I can't really talk much more about that. But really it's about giving as much as possible from a social and a business point of view and an economic point of view back to all of us, whilst also maintaining the health reality around keeping as many people as we can out of the hospital system.
Thanks. And so just to clarify, an unvaccinated person will be able to go into a pub, say in Orange today, and get a drink, but then when we hit 70%, that business will have to say, no, you can't come in here anymore.
That's absolutely correct. Yep. So at the moment, there are places that have come out of stay-at-home orders where people are enjoying those smaller freedoms responsibly, hopefully. But in a few weeks' time, if they are not double vaccinated, that will not be available to them. As simple as that. That's the rule that's been put forward. There will be a public health declaration on this. There will be a public health order around this, and that's expected probably next week.
No worries. And just lastly, do you think that businesses who say that that's sort of making them discriminate against customers is a problem? What do you think of that claim that they're making?
Look, there's several sort of rules around employees and employers. One of them is around workplace health and safety. So employers have a responsibility to all employees to provide a safe workplace. So if you look at that, part of providing a safe workplace actually means making sure that all of the fellow workers are double vaccinated at the moment. The anti-discrimination stuff has been talked about a bit. The Health Minister's dealing with a fair bit of that right now. But one of the simple ways, if you are worried about being accused of being discriminatory, don't open your store, don't open your business, or keep doing what you've been doing at the moment, which is not having to deal with customers and not having to discriminate. So there's that option available. Now, I know that's not going to be palatable for businesses as well, but from a perspective of keeping businesses going and also protecting the community, the double vaccinated rate is what's been looked at as the best way to do that, to provide security, but also provide some economic driver. And at 70%, we're encouraging people from other regions to come to our region. Regional travel, domestic travel is possible. We want people back, but we don't want people coming who are not vaccinated and can spread and put us all at risk. That's the reality around what that looks like. So we all need to be thinking about that double vaxxed 70% as being a really important milestone. And for businesses, it'll be an individual choice.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Dougal. That's all for you today.
Beautiful. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for being here for the past 45 days. And Matt, thank you. And Chrissy and Trish in Scott's office as well. I've got to say a big thank you to you. You've been awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Dougal. We'll bring Scott forward. And Ryan.
G'day, Scott. Just following up on yesterday's confirmed case in Bathurst, I was just wondering if there's any more information you can provide on that, because I had some reports private hospital sector in Bathurst had to lock down yesterday in response to that case. Could you confirm any more information about that case and what happened there?
Oh, sorry, Sam, I don't have the real details around every case, mate. I know that person in Bathurst was infectious in the community. So there's been a number of people contacted in venues, venues of concern identified. So if I can ask everyone in Bathurst, please be really vigilant. There's been, over the last week and 10 days, quite a few people infectious in the community. If you've got any signs and symptoms, however mild, please come and get tested. Don't leave the house unless you're coming to get tested. If you don't have symptoms, then please come and get tested anyway. You don't need to isolate after that event.
And it seems that some people did get the message yesterday because testing rates nearly doubled in Bathurst yesterday. So I know it's not exactly where you'd like it to be, but is that a pleasing sign certain people are starting to listen and take it seriously?
Oh, I think it is. I think with every positive case notification, we see this surge in the concern from community. What I'd ask everyone is, it doesn't matter whether you've got a case in your community or down the road 100 kilometres, that there's risk every day of the week. So please, everyone, be really vigilant around those signs and symptoms that we all know. Come and get tested. Please, in Bathurst, continue that over the weekend. If you've got 5 or 10 minutes, please come and get tested. Think about a regular regime or a way that you can come and get tested on a regular basis. It'll be the things that will keep us safe in every community right across the region, the regular, consistent testing, and making sure that we can keep each other safe with the masks and other things that we know work.
Lovely. And just quickly, finally, I know the ADF clinics are returning to Bathurst and Orange next week. Are they coming back to the same locations as before?
Yes, they are. So people that have already had one dose at those ADF clinics, they'll be notified via text message to come back for a second dose. If you don't get that notification, then please message us through the Facebook Messenger app, and we'll be able to respond to you through that. If you're interested in a first dose, then please look for all of the opportunities around every community between the GPs, the pharmacies, the Aboriginal medical services, the respiratory clinics that have been set up, and our other vaccination hubs. Please go to the vaccination eligibility checker again. There's a lot of information on there about the vaccines that are available, who they're recommended for, what's available in your local community, and some easy ways to book in for those.
Thanks, Scott. That's all from me today.
Thanks, mate.
Thanks, Sam. Chris from Prime 7.
Hey, Scott. Just a question about the Cowra case. I guess what's your concern at the moment? And are we sort of like hitting the peak soon, or is things going to get worse?
So I think with 9 cases identified in the last 24 hours and at least 4 of those infectious in the community, there's a real caution and a real reason to be concerned. So please, everyone in Cowra, if you've got any signs and symptoms, however mild, then please come and get tested. Don't leave the house without getting tested. But again, please continue to come and get tested. We know there's been a lot of people over the last week. I think nearly 40% of the community have come to being tested in the last week. And so thank you to everyone that's done that. We know that COVID can be creeping around communities, and particularly in Cowra with the risk that we're seeing. I do expect we'll see further increases to the numbers in coming days. We know that there's been a reasonable number of these new cases that have been within household spread. It's nearly 100% guarantee if you're in a household with someone with this Delta strain that you're going to catch COVID. And so please, for everyone in a household, don't leave the household. If you're in isolation, then please stay there. If you're not in that situation, you've got symptoms, please come and get tested. We've got to get in front of this before you leave the home. Think about this. Think about how you can protect yourself, your family and your community.
And we know yesterday's new cases were children under the age of 10. Is that the same pattern today, or is that different?
We're still seeing quite a few children come through in the new cases, but also some of the adults in those households, but other kids connected through school buses or other venues. And so please, for all parents, look out for your kids. If they've got any signs and symptoms, come and get them tested. If things change over a 24 or 48 hour period and those symptoms come on, then please come and get tested. Even if you don't have symptoms and your kid goes to those schools or has been on the bus or in one of those other venues, then please follow all the health advice and come and get tested.
Great, thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Chris. Molly from ABC Central West.
The Cowra cases. I was curious how many children and if a source may have been identified for that outbreak yet.
Sure, I can't give you exact numbers on the number of children. We can have a look into some of the details of the outbreak further. We know we don't have the originating case or where the first cases picked it up from. And so again, for everyone in Cowra, there is a real risk that there's more people infectious in the community. Don't leave the house without coming to get tested if you've got symptoms.
And I just also was curious, I appreciate this isn't in your LHD, but is there believed to be any link to the Hilltops cluster, which is obviously MLHD?
As we know, there's a very close connection between both Cowra and Young and the surrounding communities. We don't have links between those two clusters at the moment. And so again, a real warning for everyone. We don't know the point of transmission in those communities. And so there could be more people in those communities infectious and a real risk for the community. So please, again, come and get tested.
Thank you.
Thanks, Molly. Alex James from the ABC Western Plains.
Thanks, Matt. My question is around Wellington. That was a pretty big jump today. Do you have an indication of why there's so many cases in Wellington at the moment?
So we're really concerned about Wellington, where there's been a number of cases over the last month and 6 weeks, 2 or 3 cases a week, and it seems to be bubbling along, where there's now been a number of people, I think in total there's been 8 people in Wellington become positive in the last 24 hours across a couple of potential clusters. We don't know exactly where they're all linked to. We're still following up on 5 of those 7 cases. So please, everyone in Wellington and the surrounding communities, where there's a lot of movement between Wellington, Dubbo and surrounding communities, please be really vigilant. It's a time to be really cautious. If you've got any signs and symptoms, however mild, then please come and get tested as soon as you leave the house. And if you don't have symptoms, again, please come and get tested. There's also a lot of vaccination opportunities available in Wellington and the surrounds, so please look for those in your local community between the Aboriginal Medical Service, the General Practice and the Health Service. I think it's been a great success, the vaccination hubs that have been set up. They'll continue into the future, so please look for those opportunities.
Thanks for that. And then I wanted to turn my attention to Narromine. So I understand that there's been one case that wasn't infectious in the community, and that's why Narromine is still looking to come out of lockdown. But that case, you mentioned that, or it might have been Dougal, I apologise if it was, that there hasn't been the source of that case identified. So how is that low risk?
Well, on any day of the week, there's 20, 30, 40% of the cases that we identify that we don't know exactly where they picked up COVID from. So that'll continue with our contact tracing and following up with people. It's not unusual with a big outbreak like we've had in Western New South Wales. That's the risk, is we know that people can be in multiple locations, in contact with multiple people, and may have picked up COVID from any of those environments, and that's not always known. We do know that the Narromine case wasn't infectious in the community, and so it doesn't pose a broader risk at the moment. And we'll keep on following up with any information and advise everyone if that changes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alex. Riley from the Central Western Daily.
Hey there. I just wanted to get some information about the ADF clinic, obviously coming to Orange for the second doses. Do we know what kind of numbers or what kind of second dose percentage or increase we can expect to see in Orange by the end of the clinic next week?
Yeah, well, across both Orange and Bathurst, the ADF clinics 3 weeks ago saw around 4,000 people come for their first doses in both locations, and so that's the real challenge. Everyone come back for your second dose. People should or will be notified of that through a text message to return. If you haven't received that text message, then please get on to us through Facebook and message us. We'll help to follow up for those appointments. So I'd expect to see a bump of somewhere around 12 to 15% in those vaccination numbers, particularly for second dose. Now, what we know is there's still a long way to go from around 40 to 50% across the region on average of people with the second dose to get to the 80%. But I'd actually really set the target at 90 and 95% for our community across Western New South Wales to have second doses in their arms as quickly as possible. We know that with the opportunities that releasing of restrictions will bring in 2, 3, 4 weeks' time, there'll be COVID circulating around all of our communities in Western New South Wales. It won't be a time when we can be complacent for a second, but it'll also be a time where there's real risk, a much higher risk than there is now, of picking up COVID in our communities. And so I'm going to urge everyone, now's the time to look for those second doses. Don't think that it'll be okay in a week or 2 weeks' time, because the 2-week window from when you get your second dose to when you get full protection is really crucial for you to get that full protection. So please, everyone, look for those second doses now.
Yeah, thanks. And just on that, obviously with people being texted to come in for corresponding days, are they also being given like corresponding...
to return for that second dose.
Yeah, all from me.
Thanks, Riley. Glenn from SBS.
G'day, Nat. Hi, Scott. Scott, can you just elaborate a little bit about, I think you mentioned that the cases around Burke may have been prompted by perhaps celebrations with the lifting of stay-at-home orders for some people. Am I correct in thinking that?
No, Glenn, Burke's still under stay-at-home orders. I was really talking about Cowra and some of the other communities around the region. But what we do know in Burke is that the growth in the number of cases in the last 24 hours has been really concerning. There's a lot of efforts going in from a lot of people in Burke to try to help contain that, to get everyone tested, to fast-track vaccination again, to support people in their homes in isolation with all the food and other supplies that they'll need to isolate. We've got a lot of accommodation options in Burke if we need them. So I know there's every effort going in to help us to contain this current concern.
Thank you. That's all from me.
Thanks, Glenn. Andrew from ACM.
Yes, hi, Scott. Most of the care and detail I was seeking has already been asked for, but can you tell me, are all of the new cases being cared for at home again?
Yes, they are. All of the cases are currently being cared for at home. We've got some fantastic clinicians, our Aboriginal health workers, police and others around Cowra are playing a fantastic role to help support people when they do need to go into isolation, and that'll, I'd hope, be the case for the vast majority of people over the next couple of weeks.
Okay, thanks, Scott. Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Andrew. Oliver from the Coonamble Times.
Thanks, Matt. How are you, Scott? Just wanted to clarify something, and it might be too early to say at this stage, but I was wondering, do you think the increase in positive cases over the past 24 hours has had any correlation with the surveillance testing practice now being available across the region?
Good question, Oliver. So surveillance testing definitely has lifted the testing rates somewhat. It was around a 20 or 30% increase. It was still... we're still at around a quarter of what we were 3 and 4 weeks ago. We were seeing over 10,000, nearly 12,000 tests a day in some days. And so I'd still love to see it double what it is now. I certainly don't think it's all because of the increased testing rates, and we're finding more. Testing will help us get in front of this, there's no doubt. What we're seeing is the seeding of COVID in a community and spread in some public environments like schools and other environments, but also between households where people are definitely moving, even within a stay-at-home order. And so the real caution here is COVID can be on any of our doorsteps or corners any day of the week. And so everyone, please think about when you do leave your house, make sure you've got a mask on. Make sure you clean your hands before leaving the house, before re-entering the house. Make sure you keep your distance from other people when you're out, and make sure that you check in with QR codes. Those are the things that are really crucial for us. We can't let them drop. And just because you've come out of a stay-at-home order area doesn't mean you've got absolute freedom to drop those things. So please, everyone, this is time for us to come together and get through this.
Thanks, Scott. That's all from me, Matt. Thanks.
Thanks, Oliver. That's everyone today. Thank you all for coming, and thank you all for coming over the last couple of months. I'll be in touch with the organisation of the reformatted briefings, and I'll get the recording out as soon as we can.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.